All right, everybody, welcome to the 342nd episode of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I'm Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man.
Sage, late night podcast, boys. It's been a minute. Usually we're podcasting and there's daylight. Now this is back to like the old, vintage holy backboard where I was up late cursing because I was tired and it was almost bedtime. But we're here to talk about the big wing from Alabama, Brandon Miller, and I have some opinions about him, but let's talk about what his specs are for his how tall he is. I don't know how much he weighs.
Yeah, the only thing different now and OG days, I got a baby monitor on my left, so just watching the baby sleep, making sure snug as a bug in a rug. Hopefully, we can knock this out, and the baby can keep catching some of those Z's, and then I'll go catch some myself. But yeah, we are talking about University of Alabama small forward Brandon Miller. Was a five-star recruit from Tennessee, an Alabama legacy. Actually, I believe his father played football at the University of Alabama. Was the 17th player in the nation, according to Rivals.com, five-star recruit, seventh overall small forward, 6'9", 200 pounds. The Ringer lists his wingspan at 6'11". He is a little bit older for a draft prospect
Mm.
as a freshman, 20 and a half years old, but he had an incredible season at Alabama for the Crimson Tide. In the regular season, the Tide were the top team in the land in 37 games uh, played. He played nearly 33 minutes, averaged 18.8 points on 43, 38, and 86 shooting splits. That's field goal, 3-point, and free throw. And he did so on volume from three, nearly 7.5 attempts from three. And he got to the line 4.5 times, which is nice for a collegiate player, since obviously they play 40 minutes instead of the 48. But he is much more than just a shooter. Pulled down 8.2 rebounds, handed out 2.1 assists, nearly a block, and nearly a steal for the Tide. He had a PER of 23.4. If you're looking at big board, third on Tankathon, second on the Ringer. You're not going to see him really fall below three on many folks' big boards. He is really classified himself as a top three player in what many are calling a three-player draft. Not quite the meteoric rise of Taylor Hendricks, who kind of came out of nowhere to be a lottery pick, but
Mm.
most mock drafts this time last year, when they do the way too early look ahead, had him middle to late first round. So he did have a nice jump, and clearly going the collegiate route paid dividends for Miller, who really became one of the faces of college basketball. And draft stock absolutely shot through the roof. Portland at number three has a definitive shot at selecting Miller, which is why it was important for us to cover him. When we sit out to, map out who we're going to cover, there are guys, Victor, Scoot, Brandon, maybe the Thompson twins. It's like, yeah, we're not going to have a chance at those players. And then obviously Portland
Yeah.
really went full bore on the tank, and then they got lucky in the lottery and moved up into a spot where they have a legitimate shot at drafting this prospect. So it felt necessary to do a little bit more of a deeper dive on somebody who, prior to 2 weeks ago, didn't think the Blazers would have a realistic shot at acquiring.
Yeah. I mean, watching this Alabama team, it's the start of college basketball making offense easier. Because like that was like a 4 or 5 out scheme at all times, so there was space to do things. Watching teams like Michigan State, Duke, it's a struggle fest watching that offense. Try and just bully ball the way to the hoop. Like this one had shooters and spacing. It felt like it was 2020, 2023 basketball I was watching when I was just watching them just space out the Georgia Bulldogs when I was watching them last night. So it was really good to see that, like Michigan and Bama. So some teams actually are scheming out a very watchable team, and where other teams just absolutely aren't. Oh, I forgot UConn. They're absolutely watchable. But watching him, it was just like, okay, this is an NBA player versus a lot of kids that aren't going to be NBA players. He was just in every game I watched. He's just significantly better than everybody. The shooting is absolutely going to be the thing that we talk about first because it's pretty nutty. The 3-point shooting is pretty damn nutty, and the track record shows that this man can shoot. So I think shooting is the number one thing we can ask for, and then the shooting will open up other parts of his game in which he can improve on. But obviously, the shooting is going to be the thing that he's just, game one of the summer league. This man can shoot threes.
Yeah, he had a really strong start to the season. Played really well in the PK Classic up here in Portland. Um, I believe they played teams like North Carolina and UConn, but he had like a big coming out party against Gonzaga. He had 36-6 against the Bulldogs. He also had a pretty dominant 41-point performance on the road to beat South Carolina. Uh, and he had the game-winning bucket overtime. But what a lot of people on the court are going to remember is how he just struggled so mightily in the tournament. His bread and butter was that 3-point shot, and it was not there. He went 3 for 19 in the 3 tournament games, and really Bama was upset. They got upset by San Diego State, and you
Mm-hmm.
saw how crazy the NCAA tournament was this year. The path was there for Bama to
Bama
cut.
and Houston had the easiest paths to the chip,
The
and they
paths
dropped
were
it.
there, yeah, and
Yeah.
he didn't perform, and that's
But doesn't that show that like I feel like through regular season, Brandon Miller, this is what the NBA, if you have a good spacing offense, like this is what Brandon Miller is gonna see. So like hit that regular season, it was just really good circumstances. And you look at other teams and their circumstance, like Duke's circumstances sucked. Like to see him do so well, but then when competition gets tougher, gets shut down, is that a how do you feel about seeing him struggle in that in the postseason context?
there's two schools of thought. The first one is I'm not worried about the poor shooting or the poor performance as a whole. I don't put too much stock in the NCAA tournament. I've been burned by that in the past.
There's a lot of randomness that happens in that.
Tyrus Thomas absolutely destroyed LaMarcus
Yeah.
Aldridge, and I was on board for picking Tyrus. We got LaMarcus. That was the right choice. Like, you don't put too much stock into one game or 2 weekends of performances. The other one was James Harden. I loved him as a prospect. Then I saw he struggled at Arizona State in the opening round. I think it was against Temple or some team like that. And I was like, oh, maybe he's not as good as I thought. Well, obviously, he was much better and then some. So
Yeah.
I don't put hardly any stock into an NCAA performance. However, I do put stock into how he is getting those looks, right? He was a volume 3-point shooter. And we talked about this with CJ McCollum all the time. Anthony Simons now too. If your 3-point shot is not going down, how are you impacting the
Yep.
game? Normally he is a fantastic rebounder, but he wasn't able to get to the line. He was taken out of his game, and that is a bit concerning. It's like, so if your 3-point shot
What
is left,
do you
what
still have
else
his
are
stats
you
by?
doing?
Do you still have his stats by you? How heavy are people saying he is? Like 180, 190?
6'9", 200 pounds.
Really? He even at 200 pounds, which I think is kind of heavy for him. Like he's gonna have to guard fours and threes and fours. He need like that weight. Like I'm very happy that he rebounded at such a high level at as a skinny 6'9", 180 that or 6'9", 200 pound guy. That's a light. So I think that physically he has to put on weight or it's just going to be a bad look for him offensively and defensively because he's just going to get pushed around. But I do like the fact that he's at that weight getting boards.
Yeah, he had a really good rebounding performance against San Diego State. He had 11, but not just a 3-point shot. Overall, he was 8 for 41 in those three contests. So that was, it wasn't just, it was a terrible March Madness for Brandon Miller. He wasn't able to get wasn't able to finish, wasn't able to hit the three, like just couldn't get it done. And when you are the SEC Player of the Year, the SEC Freshman of the Year, first team All American,
It's not the best look to struggle in.
it's not a good look. Like, and it's not like they were playing dog like DAWG teams like that were coming after him. Like, congratulate San Diego State for making it to the tournament final, but I mean, they were a 5 seed. Like that, it's not like they were playing heavy hitters and he was getting locked up. He didn't have it. But what I have noticed is the weight. You mentioned that he is going to have to get stronger, and I think that really led to a lot of his lack of finishing
Oh
early on
yeah,
in the
absolutely.
season. He
And I
really
think shot IQ when he gets into the paint was also a big thing. Like there was a huge difference between beginning of the year Brandon and middle of the year Brandon. It's because he stopped taking god awful paint touch shots. But there's
he
definitely
figured it out, and it's the same
yeah.
thing with Shaden Sharp. Shaden could not finish outside of a dunk to start the season, and you watch his tape, and now he's doing up and unders, and they're doing Jordan memes of him against the New Jersey Nets at the time. Like, he figured it out. It takes reps. You have to know how the defense is going to react. You have to know how to initiate contact, how to absorb contact. And again, adding strength is probably the easiest thing any prospect can do.
I
In
mean,
any NBA strength and conditioning program,
it's going to pull weight on.
yeah, it's not that is not the problem. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would say what as a prospect, what intrigues me so much about Brandon Miller is the playmaking upside that he has, because he has a nice handle, and he some of the passes he made 6'9", he has a nice handle as a freshman. That is a
I
nice
th-
handle.
I think that again, I think this is the thing that we disagree about the most. I think it's functional. I don't think it's good.
Oh, I think it's good. I think it's
I think that he's a good playmaker standstill. I don't think he's a good playmaker initiating using his dribble.
see. I think he's good off of the pick and roll, and he ran it
No,
a great.
that's different. Dribble moves versus pick. I think that he is a good pick and roll guy.
Yeah,
I think that he's a bad isolation dribble guy.
yeah. No, that's going to
Yeah,
come with time. I don't think any prospect in this draft has the
Scoop.
isolation. Um, so his ability to run the pick and roll as a
Yes.
6'9"
Mm-hmm.
player is tantalizing, because not only are defenses going to have to play up on him because they don't want him to shoot, but he has the ability to make them pay if they double, if they hedge, whatever. So when you have somebody at 6'9" that can see over the defense, that is
Mm-hmm.
another connective piece. You're not just getting a shooter, and I think that's the main misconception with Brandon Miller. Just because Alabama's system encouraged volume
Mm-hmm.
3-point shooting, he's much more than just a shooter. He also, and this is because he went to Alabama, they basically wiped away his mid range. And
Yeah,
you taught me to look at the high school tape with Paolo Banchero, because Paolo to me didn't look as good as he is now at Duke. That was the system. If you look at some of Brandon's high school tape, like
he was a mid-range assassin.
at the EYBL, yeah, he
Yeah.
got to his spots. He was doing the stuff that we saw Shaden do, backing down the footwork, the shimmy, and then the fadeaway, and still getting that shot off. Like, if he's able to develop that, which I
And the
mean,
Bama tape was awful. At his mid-range was awful.
yeah. So I think he's got a huge upside when it comes to shot creation, shot versatility, just the repertoire in which he is able to go out and figure a shot out, whether it's catch and shoot, self creation, pick and roll, whatever. I think the bag is deeper than what is being assumed. Um, the comparisons are interesting because the Paul George is not the comparison I
No,
like.
no.
Um, Paul George was incredibly athletic coming out of Fresno
Mm-hmm.
State. Paul George is a lockdown defender even after that gnarly injury.
Yep.
I think Brandon Miller is a net neutral, maybe somewhat above average defender when he tops out. He's not going to be
Do you put
first
him at the
team.
four? You'd have him defend threes and fours
He
that
could
are just
defend
not
Jeremy Grant
initiators.
type of fours.
Because I just don't
He
see
can't
him.
defend Anthony Davis
No,
though.
no, 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 no. I like
It's situational.
it's definitely. I don't want him guarding ball in any situation. I force that switch defensively. I think that the thing that irritates me about Brandon Miller, and when we did our draft boards, he was 7 for me. He's 3 for you. I see a B plus player right now in the league. I think if he does one through 4 things, he's an A player. I just don't know if he's going to do that. And right now, it's frustrating for me to watch. I think that the thing that is he needs to develop craft of some sort to get paint touches. Because if he doesn't have paint touches, his offense is going to look really dimensional and he can't do the other things. I think that if he develops craft to get buckets, to avoid contact, because he's really bad at taking on contact and scoring. So I think craft, getting stronger, but I don't think he's going to get that much more athletic. And I think he's an average guy athletically, and especially when we're watching Shaden Sharp for 82 games. We see the most athletic freak of freaks. So just look at Brandon Miller is like, okay, he is a different player than what the Blazers have a lot of. They have a lot of horses, in the stable ready to run. What I see for him is a much slower pace. He has to get that creativity, get the footwork, get the strength. And if he gets that, I don't see a B plus player. I see an A player, but there's a lot of ifs that get him to that mark. I think that he's going to be an amazing shooter. And if he can develop that one move to get them, attacking and closing out really hard, he can make things happen. But I'm very worried about paint touches and the creativity and strength that it takes to get those paint touches and scores. Like Dame gets 18 a game, Luka gets 20 a game. Paint touches in this NBA is so not important, but so important that you need to manufacture it. I'm just scared that he can't do that. But if he can, my ranking of him at 7 is it's fucking wrong. It's just right now what I'm looking at is a lot of physical development that he needs to have, which is easier than skill, but it like getting that handle is going to be what really brings him to that next level. Just like a lot of players in this draft outside of Scoot Henderson and Lasor Thompson, like everyone else needs a bag. Brandon has a bag, but it's not like for his athleticism, he needs to have more just because there's going to be guys like Jarris Walker everywhere in the NBA. Like that tape against Houston, like Jarris Walker, when he wasn't doing stupid stuff defensively, was absolutely in that ass.
Yeah, I think so. I don't love the PG comparisons.
Mm.
Somebody who like there's elements to, and if you want to say he tops out, I think it's closer to Jason Tatum.
I was gonna say BI, but it's the same exact situation.
Yeah, they're not freak athletes at all. They've figured out a craft. Like if you watch,
Yeah,
Tatum's not a great athlete, but
and Tatum sucked at finishing around the rim.
he does, and Tatum's not playing defense either. Tatum made first team All NBA because of his offensive game,
Offense, yeah.
right? Like so, Ingram, Tatum. If you're looking at a guy, they're going to be secondary playmakers. They can operate out of the pick and roll. They're going to rebound the ball for their position, and they're going to give you average to slightly above average defense. Those
I
are the players. Those are the players that I think if you're looking at Brandon Miller, and you say he can be this, you absolutely need to value that pick because that is a massive player to add to your roster.
Oh yeah, I mean like I think that Tatum and Ingram are kind of the top ends of what he can do. Like I hate disrespecting what Chris Middleton has been in the NBA, but like like a more
I think he just
realistic.
there's Middleton just has just a herky jerkiness to him that I haven't seen another player replicate, so I think he moves better than Middleton.
I think that it's just about like the skill, like the role, not the actual body comp and movement. Because I don't,
Oh yeah, for sure. If he gets drafted, he's definitely Robin to Shea's Batman. Like
yeah,
that's
I feel like when you watch old Brandon Ingram, like when he was on the Lakers, it takes a long time to have that balance in your body when you're that lanky. Like he and Brandon are lanky athletes. So I think that balance, strength, like all of that stuff, it's gonna take a while. I think the first year he's gonna get bullied. Like if I was a going against Brandon Miller, I would put a, and this is what teams did. I would put a athletic three, like an undersized player, just to get in his space. So it again, that goes to the craft and what he has to do to get past that initial defender. But I mean, we're talking about a big wing that's a very elite shooter that has potential to do all of the other things that we've talked about with creativity, playmaking. You know, it's just about going to into the lab and seeing what he can do and the improvement of, like going in the mat and doing the work. But I see something very, very exciting. It's just we're gonna have to be a little bit more patient. I think defensively, I try and hide him, especially at where he is now with his body. I try and hide him. I put him on like spacer 3-4s. I don't like the one thing that I see from Brandon that kind of pisses me off more than, you know, wanting to see someone improve so much. I think his screen navigation because of his body comp is awful. Like because he's so high waisted, it's going to be difficult for him to fight through screens. So if whoever our defensive coordinator is, Roy Rogers or someone, if we fire Chauncey Billups and his entire staff, they have to do like a rule where it's just a switch. He is not fighting through screens because of how his body is. It's not even a desire. Like, there's guys that just the desire is just so much that it fights through it. But because of his high body type, where his hips are high, it's going to be a problem. So we have to have creativity of three, like if Brandon's playing the four, we're an auto switch team because he's not fighting through shit.
so I've already said who my top ends are. I think the good thing about Miller as a prospect is the floor is so high. I think
Mhm.
I don't see how he's not worse than Rashard Lewis.
Damn.
The 6'9" that can let it fly like that's
Yeah, no, I get it. I
with
get it.
range. He's already got
And
NBA
dribbles
range.
and
Yeah,
dribbles and is
that's
pretty bad defensively. I get it. I get it. I'm just thinking about Jet. Like that's his ceiling, and Brandon Miller that's his floor. I don't know. Like I think his floor is starting level 3-4. That's a very good 3-point shooter, and not much else. Like maybe he's Michael Porter Jr. at his low end because I don't believe in his dribbling and playmaking now. That could change, and I could look like an idiot in a few years saying this stuff. But right now, I don't think that he is a playmaker. So maybe he's Michael Porter Jr. instead of Rashard Lewis because Rashard brought the ball up and passed and did a lot of other things. Shoot, but I think that he's on the here. I actually have a question for you. If he was in last year's draft, is he ahead of Jabari or is he behind Jabari? Because I think they're both pretty damn similar prospects. 6'9" the shooters, 6'9" nutty shooters. Of course, Brandon has the potential playmaking. Jabari has the definite defense. Who do you
Jabari.
have
I
higher?
was I was
You're smitten with
I
Jabari.
was hindsight is 2020, but I was too high on Jabari. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Jabari. But Jabari does have defense. He could handle the ball up the court in fast break situations. Great shooter, more of a traditional
Mm-hmm.
stretch four than I think Miller is the new modern age small forward. Both had incredible freshman years in the SEC. I would take Jabari. Also, you don't have to worry about any legal issues
Yeah.
with Jabari, so that's pretty cut and dry for me.
So for me, Brandon Miller would be ahead of AJ Griffin, but behind Jabari. And in my that so he would be right. That is his position in mine. I think that he and AJ actually have a lot of similarities, except the injury issue. Like both of them are amazing shooters. Both of them kind of suck at defense. Both of them are probably going to have to be playing defense against power forwards. Like
But I
both
think
of them
that's the difference: 169 and 166.
167.
Those
Yeah,
3 inches
yeah.
matter.
Yeah, but I think that I think there's similarities. That's why I would have gone Brand. And you know, I am the biggest AJ Griffin stan this side of the Mississippi. So like me acknowledging this and then saying all the stuff that I said, like he's still better than my favorite prospect in the last 2 years. So like I think that he's very good. I just see the ways that he can get better, and yes, approve it to me. But I like him. I do. I just don't see where. I think he's gonna have to be one of those guys where he has to outscore his opponent on the other end, because I don't believe in the defense. I just because of the sheer size of players that he's gonna have to go. Like he's not stopping Jason Tatum. He's not stopping, but then he's not stopping Jarris Walker either. Like so, like defensively, it worries me, but I have no worries about what he can do for Dame year one when he's hitting threes and providing space. It's just building upon him, and him and Shaden have to improve in the same things, which isn't the best, but like I think both of them are going to need playmaking reps in actual games, but hopefully not at the end of games. Like when Dame's out and Shaden or Brandon have the ball a lot, I think that they need these reps. They're really important. But like I think that he's a very good prospect. Obviously, he's not. I don't. The only way I could see him being Batman is if he outscores the star that he's playing with. But the star is absolutely the alpha of the team. But I can see where he could just outscore them and be the Robin.
And before we wrap up, we do have to discuss the cloud looming over Brandon Miller's draft availability. Right, he was present at the scene of a crime in which his teammate Darius Miles um, was charged in killing the January 15th murder of Jamea Janae Harris. I believe there was another person who was involved with that too, Michael Davis. So that's where it gets dicey, right? Is first of all, Brandon Miller has not been criminally charged. The police say he's not a person of investigation. He has been alleged to deliver the weapon, in this case a gun, to Darius Miles, which led to the killing. From all of the reading and listening that I've done, it ranges from slang to "Can you bring my heat?" or "Can you just hey come pick me up?" He apparently never touched the gun. It's very dicey, and teams are going to have to do their due diligence into this because just because he hasn't been charged now, I think this is a scenario where whichever team drafts him has to be prepared from a PR perspective
Oh, totally.
for the foreseeable future, because there could be a civil case that could come against Brandon. Um, there's just a lot of things that can still play out if he hasn't been truthful or if new evidence has been uncovered. Apparently, at the combine, he has just been giving teams who he's interviewed with, which has been the Trailblazers, one of those teams, just a document, basically saying, "Here's an FAQ." He's not saying anything, and from a legal perspective, that's probably smart,
Smart.
just because anything he says still can be used against him. So um, it's pretty tricky, and I wonder if he won't fall a bit in the draft. You have a league right now that does not want to be
I mean, the
um,
John Morant thing
they do
has to
not
be
want to
on
be
other
tied to
people.
gun culture,
Yeah.
right? John Morant's already flashing, just he's not doing anything wrong illegally either. But the NBA does not want to be tied to gun culture, and that's just the bottom line. and you've got Charlotte, who is dealing with Miles Bridges, a big time domestic violence uh,
Mm-hmm.
issue that he had, and he was suspended for the entire year. I don't know if he's going to come back or not. You've clearly got Portland, who
The
uh,
history of our team, yeah.
that I just don't know how that's going to
I
play
mean,
in.
the fact that the Washington team was the Bullets for very like parts of our childhood, like where the some of the best players in Washington history were not the Wizards, they were the
Yeah.
Bullets. I
And so I've heard Charlotte could be looking to move down to 4, so Houston would come up and take
get scooped.
Scoot.
Yeah.
So that tells me three things, right? And these all could be true. One could be true, none could be true. But the three things could be: Charlotte does not want a point guard. They feel like LaMelo Ball is the point guard of the future, and they don't want to step on his toes. Two, they are not comfortable taking Brandon Miller. They don't want to have anything to do with that around their franchise. And this is a team in a red state. Or three, they just feel like they need so many more pieces to compete that they would rather just take some of, maybe they get Jabari Smith in 4, and they feel that's fair compensation to move down a bit, and they get a lottery pick from last year, and then they go with the fourth pick this year. So
Get a
uh,
men.
that would be interesting right there. If you're Portland, Portland could then maybe talk to other teams that really want Brandon Miller. But we also saw this right in the NFL draft, like Jalen Carter for the
He
Georgia
felt that's
Bulldogs
yeah.
fell to the ninth or 10th slot, and he was clearly stated as maybe the first or second best prospect,
Mm-hmm.
but he had a big role in a reckless car crash that killed, I believe, 2 people. So character matters. And we've also heard people say like they've uncovered that Miller's character is fabulous. There's just so many things that we don't know
Yeah,
and that we do
exactly.
know. I texted you this, like, if this was Neil Olshey making this decision, I would feel horrible about it because of his judgment and how he went about PR with the Billups hire. I feel like Joe Cronin comes across as much more of a relatable, by the book, stand up type of person that you could feel like if they do end up drafting Brandon Miller, you have to believe they uncovered every single stone,
Yeah.
right? And they're prepared for whatever PR comes of it, or they might just be like, hey, there's other prospects we like. It's just not worth the time. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, somebody lost their lives. If
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at it from a basketball perspective, it's also unfortunate, clearly not to the same level, but you have this really great prospect who I think would fit in like a glove alongside Shaden, and you could even play him with Dame now. So it's a short and a long term play for the Blazers, but they have to feel comfortable with what they hear from him directly, and what they find out. But
So I mean, you have, in my opinion, you are the best Blazer social media manager of all time. How would you handle the media if the Blazers did draft Brandon Miller? Like, how would you advertise them to the city of Portland?
I mean, thankfully, it wouldn't just be on me. Usually, when you have
No,
bigger
I mean
marketing.
when I hung out with you, it literally just was you. But
It was, but like if there's something like this, like let's say when Maurice Lucas passed away, right? Or
mm,
when Greg Oden blew out his knee, or Brandon Roy wasn't coming back, that all happened in like a 3-day period. Not the Lucas stuff, but the Roy and the Oden stuff. Usually you get a press release and you just say, here's the press release. We're just going to take verbiage from the press release, and we are going to send it out there. Don't respond to any comments, don't engage. This would be different because you're drafting a prospect. Like there's really,
there's supposed to be excitement about the third overall
yes.
pick.
I,
Yeah.
I think you work with your marketing department. You work with the president of basketball operations. You work with the president of the organization. And what's the messaging? Like everyone has to be on brand. Like if you
Mm.
look at the TV broadcast, look at the social media, you see all the graphics, all the marketing, everything is packaged together tight and neatly. Didn't used to be that way when I was there because they didn't have the resources, but now that they do. So everything is going to be buttoned up. There's going to be, certain things they're going to say, certain things they're going to interact
The
with.
best college prospect in this draft landed to us at 3. That type of stuff.
Possibly, or they may be a little subdued. I
Oh,
mean, you just don't know, right?
yeah.
It's something that it's more of like I can provide my input and
Mm,
insight and be like, hey, this is what I'm hearing. Like you do a lot of social listening, right? We did a social listening when the Rose Garden changed over to the Moda Center. And I went through forums, I went through tweets, I went through other social platforms, and I just basically put together anecdotes, overall themes,
mm,
sentiment. Like, here is what people are saying. Maybe here's what we should do. Like, it was my call. Like, they wanted to continue to push Moda Center content. And I was like, people don't want to hear this. They're pissed off. You can do, I know they're your shiny new sponsor, but they need to wait. Like people are really pissed. Like, well, let's not post the Moda Center going on the court. Nobody's going to be happy with that. So thankfully that they listened to that, and that was my insight in there. So it would be more like I would have more insights after the fact, but
mm,
the initial messaging would have to be from the top down, and I'm just executing whatever the orders were.
mm. Like it sucks that obviously the entire situation sucks, but like it upset me the celebration that the Bama coaching staff did of like doing the pat down to him. I think that was just an outrageously insensitive bad look for the entire city or the entire university and the college basketball team, the sports organizations of all of Alabama. That was such an insensitive thing to do that I think that people that aren't nuanced in the situation. Like that's a clippable thing that people can see, and I think that they did him such a disservice.
I
Like, because
think
that's
the
good.
consensus is that the university handled this as poorly as possible.
Yeah.
Like their coach was saying insensitive
Mm-hmm.
things, basically just saying, "Oh, wrong place, wrong time." Well, buddy, somebody died. Like
Yeah.
that's more than wrong place, wrong time. And the the clip you're talking about, the pat down, it was later said because he's cleared for takeoff, like that type of
Nah, I'll
stuff.
be.
But even then, you have to know optics, right? And if
Mhm.
there's also, so here's another layer to this, right? Clearly the kid is 19 years old, and we've all made poor decisions at 19 and younger and even older. But the decision making does come into question. Like, are you willing to invest the third overall pick into a player, into a person that has the decision making that says somebody asks for a gun, right? I mean, I know hindsight is 2020, but like, what are you going to do with that? Like, what are you going to do? I don't want to be like, so like, it's really nuanced
Mm,
because the Blazers are going to have to do their due diligence. Like, if somebody says, "Hey, come bring me my gun," I'm like, why? Like, no, you can come get it yourself. Like, I'll bring you a McFlurry. I'll bring you some groceries, but I'm not bringing you a gun. Like, what do you plan on doing with that?
mhm.
And I think that is what everybody is looking to uncover, right? Like, did he know that's what was going to happen? I've heard, there's been theories out there that Miller thought it was for self-defense. He didn't know it, or he did. Like, whatever happened, one thing is for certain: only Brandon Miller will know, and Brandon will have to live with whatever that knowledge is for the rest of his life. Nothing can take that away from him,
Yeah.
right? He's always going to carry that with him. So if he's truly innocent, then it should be a little bit lighter of a burden, even though I don't think you can completely remove a burden because you're tied to a murder. Like, regardless, you're going to go down in history. Like, your name will surface with this story for
Mm,
the end of time. So um it is interesting though, Sage, I will say, because right after the lottery, like, I a little bit was heard about Brandon Miller. Like, the story kind of went away, and I think somebody tweeted, I think it might have been Woj, like, oh, people are like really liking his character. And as you're getting closer to the draft, people are starting to be like, oh yeah, remember that.
You remember the gun there? Yeah.
It reminds me so much of like when you're at work or you're in school and you get this massive project, but it's not due for like 2 months. You're like, I don't got to worry about it. And so you just don't,
Mm-hmm.
out of sight, out of mind. Then a couple of weeks and you start creeping up, start thinking about it. Oh, I got to get this done. What am I going to do? That's exactly what's happening now. And I think the new cycle is only going to pick that up more. Obviously, the finals are going to be over, right? Everyone's going to focus on the NBA draft. They're going to start interviewing prospects, and they're going to more and more outlets are going to be like, oh yeah, like they're gonna like a lot of people, and I think maybe listeners may not know this, like they may not know Brandon Miller was involved in this. Like
Oh no.
they work on a news cycle that's like, okay, what do I have to focus on today? And then when it comes to Miller's time, when they need to be like, oh, the Blazers drafted Miller, like there's people at the Oregonian that don't know about it right now, but they will now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
and here's the story. So that's why those stories come out, because not everyone has the time to realize the backstory on a lot of things until something is present, and then they start to do the research and be like, oh, this is the situation at hand. Here's our story. Here's our reporting. Maybe they partner with some paper in Tuscaloosa or
Mm-hmm.
Alabama or whatever. But that's when it starts making rounds again. Is when it becomes top of mind. So it's not something that you can just say, why are people bringing this up so much later? That's why. It's because it's top of mind,
Mm-hmm.
and you best believe it. It's going to be a topic
It's going to be a
regardless.
very rough time for Brandon Miller
Yeah,
compared to every other draft pick.
regardless of where he gets picked. And for his sake, I hope he's innocent.
Mm.
Just bad. Also, I hope that would be that's you don't want to have that. I don't know how else to state that. It's
I mean, I think that the they have to do that trial and
and yeah, he could potentially have to testify at like
yeah, there's a
this
lot of
isn't
legal
over.
stuff
So
that you and I just don't know
yeah, if
because we're
this
too busy
and
talking about
and whatever team drafts him, Sage, is going to be Brandon Miller of the XYZ. It's not just
mm,
going to be Brandon Miller testifies. It's going to be everywhere. So whatever team selects him has to be okay. More than okay. They have to be comfortable and content with the
they have to be
situation.
confident in his ability as a human being, not a basketball player. He
Yep.
has to be judged as a human being. Jarris Walker is not good. We are not judging Jarris Walker for his ability to be a good human. We're not judging Amen Thompson. We're not a sir. Like none of these people. Brandon Miller's this is going to be an individualized experience that only he is going to know the ins and outs of, and it's going to be an exhausting process for him, for the organization, for the fans that are going to feel a need to learn about him, potentially connect with him. It's going to be a very different thing that he experiences over every person. And, like, I think that there's like the scrutiny that he's going to have, it's going to be insane with him. And I will understand if teams don't take him when it's quote unquote value because of the the situation. But as a human, I hope that he can move past this, focus up on, you know, moving past this as a human, moving past this as everything. He's going to deal with it. I hope that there's no other issues in his life because this has to be scary for an 18, 19-year-old
You
person.
got to surround yourself with better people.
I mean, shit. I like it. It's a different, like living up here. It's just such a different thing than living back south. So I mean, fuck, man, it's gonna be so different for him. Like the fact that we've been talking about this for what seems like 15 minutes, like we didn't do this shit with Jarris or Jet or any of these other players. Like So this is a totally individualized process. I think that, like, again, like you would know if we drafted Scoop, it would be such an easy process. So I get it. I hope that we he can move on from this. I hope that he is innocent, and you know, like I'm just not rooting for. I hate it when people root for these young players that have fucked up, and he fucked up pretty big to fail. I hope that he's successful in this venture in his life because, I mean, there isn't that many people in this league, so he's like this experience is just. I would hate for something that he did when he was 19 to ruin everything. But do you have anything else you want to say about Brandon Miller?
I mean, I also, I mean, I hope that um her family gets the full 100% honest truth and
Oh
everything, and
yeah,
the at the very least they will get some form of justice. Obviously, it's just really shitty that I mean, I believe she left behind a young child as well. So that's it's just tough.
I mean yeah, like
It's
people's
it's
lives have been ruined by that incident.
and the reason I hope that Brandon is innocent is not necessarily for him. I mean, clearly yes, but really when you're the victim and then you see somebody else kind of get off scot free, but then they're always in the media, always in the name, and you have to see that name and that triggers you.
Okay.
That's not right either. So that's a big reason why I hope he's cleared, because I don't want that trauma to keep coming up for her family, because if he's as good as advertised, he's going to be all over um the internet, TV, mobile. I mean,
Top shot.
whatever. So
Yeah.
um I hope everything just gets resolved.
Yeah. I mean, it's we have to we have to hope that everything all the things align for this for everybody involved because it is a very very sad case where someone lost their life, someone lost their mother. So we, you know, thoughts and prayers to everybody involved, but I don't really have anything else to talk about within talking about Brandon Miller. We'll be back later in the week to talk about the Thompson twins. I'm very excited about that. Watching watching the clips that I've seen of both of those guys, improvement shows a lot of what they can do with their work ethic, and work ethic with that type of athleticism is pretty incredible. So very excited to talk about the Thompson twins. We will be back later. Everybody have a safe and lovely evening. We are out of here. Bruce.